we will start right away. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Lina. All right. Welcome back, everyone. Okay. So now I think we are going to start our final slot for tonight. Okay. So for today, we are honored to welcome Prof. Michael. Okay, from Keene State College. Okay, United States of America. Okay, so Prof. Michael will be sharing on the topic of construction incident casualty with a focus on design influence. Right. So I think Prof. Michael, maybe you can share your slide first. Okay, and we will so that we can see whether we can see your slide. All right. Okay, so for the students, if you have any question, you can put it in the chat box. All right. Okay. All right. I think it's
Can you
loading now.
see the slides, or is it coming up as notes?
Yes, perfect.
Is it coming up? Okay, because it looks weird it looks strange on my end, but good. So you can just see the slides, is that correct?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
great.
So I think without further delay, I would like to invite Prof. Michael to share his lecture with us. All right, Prof. Michael, please go ahead. Thank you.
Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for, I know it's late in the evening for you, and I'm your last speaker, so I'm standing between you and something fun or going to bed. So that's a tough slot, but thank you for having me in to speak to you today. I'm speaking to you from the northeast part of the United States, almost in Canada, maybe about a 3-hour drive to Canada, between Boston and Montreal is where I'm located at. And so I'm going to share with you today a little bit about my view on design and accidents. And I'm going to go into a little bit too that I'm going to go into a little bit of the implementation side of design and safe design as well too. I'd like to just explore that a little bit because accidents are in the past, and so I'd like to share with you some things about foreseeability. So, I have a kind of a funny sign here on the first slide, right? And so I think we have too many signs in the world. I think there are way too many signs, and when we see a lot of signs, and when we see signs maybe that just are obvious or don't make sense, or signs are a sign of poor design. And so that's why I have this sign on the first slide. It's a sign of poor design. So do we need so many signs? Well, I should tell you just a little history about, kind of how I came into this world of safety through design. I was working at a large corporation, and this is, gosh, a long time ago. I'm old. This is 30 years ago. And I was on the corporate staff, and we were building facilities and acquiring new facilities. And when we were building new facilities and adding on, we would say, oh gosh, there's all these problems. We need to fix these problems earlier. We need to fix all these safety and health things earlier. So lo and behold, we decided, we'll go out and inspect, because that's what safety and health professionals do. We inspect things. Well, maybe we should stop inspecting things. That's my challenge for you. We should stop inspecting things and start designing things differently and thinking about how we organize work. And so we went out to this one facility. I went out to this one facility. It was about a month before they were going to start the manufacturing process. We were still building some things, putting the final touches on. And I went around with the operations folks and the maintenance folks, and we looked at things. And at the end of 2 days, I went to the brand new plant manager with my list of things that should be fixed. And he looked at me and he said, "So your company built me a facility, a brand new facility, and now you're giving me a list of 20 things that I should fix for workplace safety and health." And I thought, well, that's pretty sad. That's pretty sad. And what I realized is that we were starting way, way too late. Even though we didn't go in, we tried to go in early before the workers were really there to fix things, but we were still very, very late in the process. Now, this is 30 years ago. And unbeknownst to me, but around the same time, there was a pulp and paper plant engineer who was doing the same thing I was doing. And he published an article on it, Roman Zimbersky. And he published this article, and he said, well, the ability to influence safety is dependent on the project schedule. And the earlier you start thinking about safety, the better your ability to influence safety is. If you wait till startup, like we were doing, it's going to be very, very low. Right? The best you can do is maybe write some procedures, do more inspections, do more audits, do more training, do all those things that are administrative controls. But you really can't design things differently at that point. It's very expensive. So maybe we need to get involved a little bit earlier. And so the light bulb kind of went on for me, and I thought, the topic of designing for safety, that would be a very interesting topic. And so I started thinking about that, and I decided to do my PhD, and this was a focus of mine, and I was learning about things, and so we'll talk about specifically safety and design and how some of the legislation that maybe you've studied, maybe Patrick talked about some of the legislation in the UK earlier. And so we'll talk about that a little bit. But first, what causes accidents, right? You've probably talked a little bit about different accident causation models, I would think, in your class. And there's a lot of accident causation models out there. I'm not going to tell you this is a good one or this is the best one or anything like that. But there's a lot out there. And so people will say, design causes accidents. And I don't think that's true. Design is simply an influence. Design is an influence in the way we do things, the way workers interact with their environment, how we design things, how we organize work. And so, but your worldview of safety is really important. So I'll put up this picture. What comes to your mind? What reactions do you have from just this photo? I don't know if folks want to chat in the chat. I see a couple emojis popping up. Maybe there's someone who wants to say something. We'd love to get feedback. There's lots of I think they're the wow emojis popping up, or the shocked emojis. So yeah, maybe you're shocked that these folks, so these are, let's say these are maintenance people. And again, a photo, right? A photo doesn't tell you a lot. A photo doesn't tell you about the context of the work. You don't have an opportunity to interview these workers. You don't have a video of how they got there, why they got there, what they're actually maybe doing. It looks like they're cleaning windows, though. So, you know, a lot can be misapplied. A lot of biases can come in when you just see a photo. That's one of the first things, I think. But it you know, your reaction, whatever you thought about when you saw this, you know, kind of tells you some things. And so if this was an accident investigation, if one of the poor gentlemen fell, and you were doing an accident investigation, because this presentation is supposed to be about design and accidents, right? So how would you view this, right? So there's a lot of different ways to view it. Certainly, we can say to the people, they should not be doing that. They're on the ledge. The one gentleman is on top of a ladder. They shouldn't be on top of that ladder. It's unstable like that, right? And so we could kind of say, well, they are behaving unsafely, and we need to change their behavior. And you'll hear that a lot, right? But again, you know, your worldview of accidents, your view of accidents is very important. But I would challenge you to think, well, what about the supervisor who planned and organized this work? Was it planned very well? Maybe not. Do they have the right tools and equipment to do the job that they have to do? It looks like they're, again, cleaning the windows, right? Can we design things differently? Can we organize the work differently? And that's, I think, organizing work is very much part of design. Design is not just about the physical design, although it is partly about the physical design. And we could say, well, when we designed this building, did we think about how the windows would be cleaned? Do we have proper tools? Did we think about that? Can we change something? And when you think about just things in your environment and workers, what workers have to get involved in, you'll also see at the very top over here, there's a light bulb out. And that's probably the next job that this poor crew will have to do. How will they get to change that light bulb? So I encourage you, when you're around campus or around your work site or just around the city or town, the area that you live in, to think about how things are designed. I encourage you to be more observant about how you interact with design. And that's when I do design workshops, usually, we could do a whole 8-hour workshop. Lena, maybe you'll have me over sometime and we could do an 8-hour workshop live. I'd love to do that. But we talk about things around the user experience, or in this case, the worker experience. And I always challenge folks in a workshop, or my colleagues, to be more observant and to think about how design influences behavior. And that's a really huge piece of what we'll talk about today, and I hope perhaps what the previous speakers talked about as well. How does design influence your behavior, either positively or negatively? So that's kind of where we're going. I'm not sure if you've heard of Wilfy Whiff and Whiffy Whiff. Have you heard of Wilfy Whiff or Whiffy Whiff? Maybe give me a thumbs up if you have these strange terms. Wilfy Whiff. What the heck does that mean? Well, what causes accidents? Wilfy Whiff. What you look for is what you find. What you look for is what you find. Wilfy Whiff. So, infamously, about 20 years ago, somebody wrote this in the journal Safety Science, and it really took hold, and it really kind of, again, leads us into that particular bias. We all have biases. And I think as soon as we get more experience, no matter what that is, in a particular job, in a particular task, in a particular environment, our biases shift and change, sometimes for the worse. But Wilfie, with what you look for is what you find. So whenever you're looking at an accident, whenever you're looking at things, what you look for is what you find. And then accordingly, Wiffy with, what you find is what you fix. So if we're constantly saying, oh, people behave, it's people's behavior, people are behaving poorly or not up to standard, we're going to be constantly trying to fix people's behavior and change people's behavior. I'm not sure about you, but good luck with that. It's hard to change people's behavior. People, behavior is a function of the person and their environment. And it's very difficult, especially at work, to change people. But it's a little bit more under your jurisdictional control to change the environment, to design the work differently, to organize the work differently. People, we need to be more empathetic. Empathy is a huge trait that I also talk about a lot in some of the design workshops that I do. How can we be more empathetic towards people's behavior? That's a huge task, not an easy task. But I think the more empathy that we have for people's behavior, the better we'll be at organizing work. We'll take feedback. We need to understand why people are behaving in a particular way, how we can organize work differently, and how we can design the physical environment differently to what I like to call to arrange conditions for people to be successful. Arrange conditions for people to be successful. That's what safe design. That's the essence of safe design, really. So, but back to accidents. I was curious about accidents. I've done some of my early work, and I'll talk about some of my early work here in trying to understand accidents and accident causality and how design was an influence. I was curious about that. So I was learning all these different things and having these particular questions, but there was, I'm sure Patrick talked about the construction design and management regulations. I hope so. Maybe give me a thumbs up if he did that through the emojis. But Patrick in the UK, awesome. I see a thumbs up coming up. Thank you. They've had these regulations that are imposed on architects and engineers and building owners since 1994. And I thought, well, geez, that's really interesting. And I always wondered, how did these regulations come about? Like, what happened, right? So lots of regulations come about because there's been accidents, and we want to prevent those particular accidents from happening. So we implement something. It turns into it's a decent idea. It turns into a regulation or a law. And so the United Kingdom and their construction design and management regulations, you'll see this quite a bit, or at least when I was studying why they came about, but they found that nearly 2/3 of injuries and fatalities on construction sites could be traced to design decisions and lack of planning. And I thought, well, gee, that's really interesting. And so I was a researcher. I wanted to know, well, how did they come up with that? How did they come up with that? What methodology, what database, what data source, how did they determine it could be traced to design and lack of planning? That was really interesting to me. I mean, wow, 2/3 that design and lack of planning is an influence. That's quite significant. So I tried to find this particular study, and I couldn't find it. It was done in, wow, a long time ago, 1987. What's that, like 40 years ago? Oh my gosh. Is that 40? Yeah, 40. Wow. And so this guy, Pierre Laurent, from France, wrote some documents, and what I found is that there was really no methodology to it. There was just a couple of pages in this report, and this document, I finally found this original document in 2010, and it was in French, so we had to translate it. And what we found was that Laurent just basically said, without any methodology, it was just kind of his opinion. It was his opinion. It was all opinion based. He basically said that, yeah, about 2/3 are due to shortcomings in design, things of that nature, organizational problems, and so that's kind of how, really, that's how the European legislation and the UK construction design and management regulations were underpinned. That was the foundation. Was just some French guy saying, yeah, about 2/3 are due to upstream conditions. And I thought, well, as a researcher, to me, that's very, very problematic. We need evidence. If we're going to actually put forth a concept like safety through design, we should have some evidence that there's a problem. So that's kind of what some of my work had done, and so this was the original European directive that Laurent's work was based off of, and then the European directive turned into legislation in the European Union and the UK. The UK adopted this as the construction design and management regulations, effective in 1994. And I'm sure Patrick also talked about that they've been revised about 3 times since that. But nevertheless, there are these regulations in place, I believe. Places like Singapore and Malaysia also have some similar duties on architects, engineers, and building owners. Probably, and well, I'm familiar with the Singapore context, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But a lot of the worldwide regulations then base themselves on the UK construction design and management regulations, which base themselves on the European directive, which based itself on this French guy sitting in his office and saying, yeah, about 2/3 are due to design and poor planning, without any evidence at all. It just that bothers me. That bothered me. And so I'll talk about some of the work. So so many questions. So many questions. So I decided to do my own study. And this study, here's the link. I can give you these papers. Lena may have them as well too. I'll show you some other papers that we produced about accidents and about this early work. And so I'll kind of give you, I think I'll give you what we found was about 42%. So we reviewed fatalities. I reviewed about 200 or so fatalities and a whole bunch of injury reports, and we ultimately we kind of linked these and said, if design, that design has an influence. I would never say that design is like the main thing. Design is just one thing, but it's a pretty big thing. But it is, we tried to put a number to it. Our number was not 2/3, it was about 42%, that we could make some type of contributory influential link from design into the fatality and the work that was being performed. So that was, and I'll kind of give you some examples of some things. This was a group of well drillers. They were drilling groundwater remediation wells, and they pull up in their truck, and you can see their stuff here on top of the truck, or on top of this truck behind them, to kind of dig the wells. And the geotechnical engineer, the environmental engineer, had all the wells where the proper placement of the wells should be at this site for groundwater remediation, monitoring. They had them all mapped out, and one of the wells was below these power lines or close to these power lines, and so the workers, again, rather than stopping work, they said, well, maybe maybe the engineers knows what they're doing. Maybe we can do this without touching the lines. But lo and behold, they did get close to the lines. It arced. It electrocuted. One worker died. So this is an example of how it was a fatality was linked to a design decision, right? So if the environmental engineer was considering the hazards and risks associated with this particular project that they were designing, they would have at least alerted the workers to these particular lines so that they could shut them off, or have the utility company, that would be the proper thing, have the utility company shut them off, or move the well locations. So, why aren't we considering that in the design phase, right? So we're pushing everything, health and safety, down onto the contractor. And that's exactly what the regulations, that you have and that the UK has, are, that's why they're there, to try to prevent these types of things. So this was an example from here, and all my accident examples here are from the US. And again, stop me at any point if anybody wants to ask a question. I know I'm kind of just speaking here, but please stop at any point or throw something into the chat. So that was one accident. Here's another one. These are so this is a new building. These are the utilities that are going up. This might be a HVAC vent. This might be electrical or plumbing or something else, and this hole might be ready for something else. Who knows what, some electrical stuff, but some type of utilities would be going in here, and each of the particular contractors, right? So so the plumbing contractor, they did their work, the HVAC people did their work, and now we're waiting for the electricians to come and put their utilities in. So as you know, on a construction site, right, there's so many different subcontractors in and out, all doing their own specialty types of things. Well, the people so there was a temporary guardrail around this, around these holes, but the contractor who put that temporary guardrail up, their work was done. They were one of the contractors who were all done, so they were taking their stuff with them. Right, that's the way it goes. Right, we're not going to leave that there, so we're going to take our temporary guardrails down. No other contractors put it up, so we put it up. They did the right thing during the work that they had, and now it's open. And so this fatality occurred actually to a drywaller, somebody putting up drywall. So in front of this, in front of this hole, there was a drywaller, and he was kind of stepping back and inspecting his work, and unfortunately he stepped back and fell right through this hole and died. And so this is one of those that, I should have put the solution. There's a really good solution for this. I should have put a picture of that, and I forgot. I'm sorry. But we link this to the design. In fact, architects in the UK came up with a solution for this, where they put like a rigid type of a plastic covering that can be then cut out with a utility knife and things of that nature. So when the different contractors come, it goes in this kind of sheet. You can imagine this like hard plastic sheet goes in here to cover these holes before they pour the concrete. So, and then when the utility people come, they just cut out their they just cut that out. They cut out their particular hole. And so it was an architect-led solution that folks in the UK came up with I thought was really innovative. Again, I'm sorry, I should have put that picture in here. But there are, there are different ways of thinking that architects can think differently, and I've met some really progressive UK architects who are really thinking about how they can design things differently. And so that was one. Skylights. Do y'all put skylights in the roofs of your buildings to bring daylight in? Does that happen a lot in Malaysia? We do that a lot here in the US, and we put skylights everywhere. Everywhere. We love skylights, and these skylights are very cheap, and they're fragile, and they break. And so basically what you see here, these skylights, these are basically holes in the roof. These are fragile. They will not hold the weight of a person. And there's probably a little sign on the skylight that says, "Don't step here. You'll fall through." There's probably a sign. Do you remember what I said about signs? The first slide. Signs. We should not have signs. Signs are bad. Do not solve your problems by putting up another sign. So skylights. So this is actually a really interesting project. This is in California. They were putting solar panels up on the roof. We also like to put solar panels up on the roof. And we were putting solar panels everywhere. There's a spot up here in between these fragile skylights. We're going to put a solar panel. So sounds great. All these solar panels that are going to go in, and so here's some of them, and lo and behold, and you can see the racks here, and right here at the bottom of this slide, you can see these racks here where the solar panels were going to go, and a solar panel installer stepped the wrong way, stepped through a skylight, fragile skylight, and fatality. So how do we kind of look at this? How can we organize the work differently? How can we design the physical environment differently? Here's just more kind of angles of the situation. And so certainly, there are ways to actually engineer and protect skylights. I don't know why all skylights just don't come with some type of protection here. We in the United States, we still kill about 30 people per year falling through skylights. It's just a totally preventable tragedy. There is no reason for that. So that's just one example of some building elements. And so I would encourage you again, to be observant, to think about things in your environment. Some of I won't get into the statistics or anything like that and bore you with all that stuff, but what we found in our study is that this concept can affect construction, maintenance, renovation, repair work. The safe design concept, it's for all types of construction projects, commercial, industrial, residential. It can positively affect all types of things. And we use the NIOSH FACE, Fatality Assessment Control and Evaluation Program. They do a great job and are a great source of information for accident investigation and accident details. And so we actually recommended that they consider a special emphasis program on design. And they actually did. They actually had a special emphasis program focused on safe design, which was really exciting. And so some of the findings. So again, I think so. Here's that article again. Oh no, this is an article. So we followed up this research with an expert panel, so an expert panel kind of they reviewed some of our work, which was great, and we published that to kind of reemphasize the importance or the validity of the study. So again, trying to move away from that UK or from that French study and put some evidence base behind it. So we did the original study. There's the expert panel study, and I'll give you these slides, Lena. And then we also kind of looked at the Laurent work, and we published something about 5 or 6 years ago on the Laurent study and how we kind of viewed that, and how people should be really looking at that a little bit more critically, right? And I think this whole word cause, I think we should throw the word cause out when we talk about workplace safety and health and when we talk about accidents. Cause is because we typically look for just one cause, and that's probably, accidents are multifaceted, they're complex. And so this is what I wrote. I'm so glad that I wrote this in that original article, to presume that if we did this safe design concept, it would automatically reduce construction fatalities. That's incorrect. It's not a panacea, right? It's a team-oriented approach that needs to happen. Design is just one element of a holistic approach to minimize construction project risk and enhance worker safety. So it's just one of many things that people should be doing around construction. But I want to just talk in the couple minutes I have left about being proactive and how can we be proactive. And I'm going to share some thoughts with you. So I had the opportunity to live close to you all. I lived in Singapore for a little bit and was working at in their National Park Service, actually in the Center for Urban Greenery and Ecology. And this is back, I don't know, 2011 maybe, I think. And I was going back to Singapore for the next 2 or 3 years till probably 2014 maybe was my last trip to Singapore. But we were working with urban greenery systems. So I'll share some things about that. So this is a chart that kind of I think is really interesting, and I'm sure you're familiar with the hierarchy of controls. Maybe give me a thumbs up if you're familiar with the hierarchy of controls. You've heard that we should try to eliminate hazards. Also, I see a thumbs up. We should try to eliminate hazards. We should try to change the work. We should engineer things before we just go to rules and procedures and give people personal protective equipment. But if we really look at what safety and health professionals do, almost all of their work is rules, procedures, training, warning, personal protective equipment. That's all the work that we do. We rarely work what we call above this yellow line. We rarely work above the yellow line. We should. That's what design is all about. That's where we're going to have the most impact, the most ability to influence workplace safety and health. And this chart says that we're going to have more creative potential. Creative potential means doing something really innovative, fundamentally changing the way people work. But this chart also says, wow, that's hard, right? It's hard to eliminate hazards and risks. It's hard to engineer things out. It's easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's easier in terms of the context of work, changing the work, to just give people personal protective equipment, or to write a rule, to write a procedure and say, don't do that, right? Again, that's trying to change people's behavior. That's just, we call that an exhortation. We exhort, oh, please do that. Please be careful. You should know better, right? All of those are behavioral driven. All of those are below the line. All of those are easy in the grand scheme of things, but they have zero creative potential. Let's show you some stuff. So I learned about Singapore. I was studying green roofs here in the States, and I was studying how green roofs are designed and how people have to maintain green roofs. And I learned that Singapore had guidelines on design for safety on rooftop greenery. And I was doing this work. This was published in 2009, and I was doing my work in 2009, 2010. And then I found out that this group had a fellowship program. So I applied for the fellowship. I got the fellowship, and I went to Singapore, and I studied the safe design of green roofs and green walls and urban greenery systems in Singapore. And that was fun. So I'm going to share some things around that. And so here's a green wall. This is in a car park. You might say, well, okay, well, the client, the owner of this, they want this green wall to be maintained. They want it to be beautiful. And so how do we do that? Well, right, we could put workers on stilts. We could use ladders. We could build scaffolding. We could, have long poles that might work. We could have a gondola system. We could have people repel up there like a mountain climber. Or what the architect decided to do was they built right behind it. They built a little walkway. They built room for a walkway. Workers walk right in. The greenery is on doors that they're French doors that open into the walkway, and you'll see that there are guardrails built into that particular system, and the guardrails there's no PPE. This is zero PPE, so workers just walk in, they do their work in a safe location, and they close up the French doors, and then we can go back and kind of see it's beautiful, it's maintained, it's designed well, it's designed for maintainability. It considered workers' safety, and so they don't fall out of here. They don't have to use ladders, they don't have to build scaffolding, they don't have to worry about all that extra stuff. It's more efficient, it's more innovative, it's more creative. We eliminated the hazard, going back to that particular chart. Other innovations from Singapore. This is on the main road. Oh gosh, what's the main road in Singapore called? The main shopping road, I forget.
Orchard Road? Is it Orchard Road?
Yes, Orchard Road. This is on Orchard Road. Yes.
Yeah.
And so, yes, and so we want Orchard Road to be beautiful. Everything, boy, right? Singapore, they want everything to be beautiful, right? I miss Singapore. I haven't been back. Oh gosh, it's been over 10 years.
Oh, that's so long. Now it's much, much more different. You should come back.
I need to go back, and I need to visit you. I need to visit you folks.
Another grant.
But these were so the question became for the landscape architect, what type of plants am I going to plant here, because this is and how are we going to maintain this stuff, right? And so the engineer on the project came up with these rotate. They just like the outside of the columns rotate. So if we go back, you can just kind of stand here and you can rotate these, and you can replant, you can weed, you can take care of all the things that you need to be doing to make this beautiful. So that was good. Just quickly, the difference between design and redesign. So if you design it right the first time, it's a whole lot better than if you come in and say, oh, hey, we need to change it. We need to change it. Kind of like I was doing 30 years ago when I was working for the large corporation. I came in and said, oh, here's 20 things we need to do differently. Well, that's redesign, right? So if we do it right the first time, here's some examples. This is a primary school in Singapore, very, very large school, and so there's these greenery ledges all the way around the school, all the way around the whole building, on all the different levels. I think it's about 5-6 levels. Very, very large school. And so these have to be maintained, they have to be cut, they have to be replanted, they have to be, people need access to it. Well, geez, I wonder how we'd access that. Now we got to go behind and get through all these bushes and all this stuff, and there's no, then you're out here and you're next to the ledge. There's no fall protection. Oh, wow. Well, what they did was let's redesign it. Let's redesign and put some fall protection in. Let's put some fall protection in. So they did that. But still, well, how are you going to get there? How are you going to get back there? How are you going to do your work? And look closely at this picture. This is 6 months after they put this fall protection in. And you can see the eye bolts, the anchor points are starting to show signs of deterioration already. So the difference between design and redesign. So I wouldn't trust this. And I don't know, again, I don't know how I'm going to get back there. So we worked, and so my work in Singapore was learning all about green roofs. My colleague, Chun Hock, was my colleague. Chun Hock, he had a background in architecture and horticulture. And we went around Singapore and looked at things, and we interviewed architects, and we talked with architects and building owners, and we revised those particular guidelines that I showed you, and we went to the super trees. We saw the super trees being built. That was really pretty amazing. We saw all kinds of things, but we rewrote the guidelines as suggestions. And so, like, for example, we put these suggestions in that, okay, for that particular example, right? Let's put the horizontal lifeline. Let's put this shrubbery out a little bit. Let's build enough space. Let's try to give it some dimensions. Let's try to give people ideas that, okay, we certainly want to have ledges, and we want to have vegetated ledges because they're beautiful, but they need to be maintained, and people need to do that in a safe manner. So we wrote these new guidelines, which you could find on the Center for Urban Greenery and Ecology website. We wrote these as suggestions, and I should probably go back. I should go back, and we should revisit 10 or 12 years later and kind of see. I should contact my friends there.
Oh, that's great. Ask them for the fund, though.
Yeah. So what we were trying to do is we were trying to build up this area. This is the ability to identify hazards and risks, right? And so it's hard. It's hard to do good, safe design. I mean, it's easy for us to sit here and say, that architects and designers should do things differently, but it's really, really hard. And so the more advice, the more examples that we can give architects and engineers and building owners, the more information, the more we can educate, the more creative we can be. I think that we'll build this area up underneath the red line, and we'll start to really be able to identify hazards and risks in the design phase. And we're certainly working on that, and so the green building or the green roofs and the urban greenery systems are an example where I think there's a lot of good ideas, and if we can translate that to other building elements, I think we'd be pretty good. But we published some things around green roofs, around skyrise greenery. There's some articles out there, and so Lena, I think I did it in 50 minutes. And would love to think if there's any comments or discussion points. Let's see if I can stop sharing.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, so the rest, please. Aspiration is a very interesting delivery. Actually, I thought that you would deliver the same like previously. It's